In this video, we will learn how to identify the amplitude, the period, the vertical and phase shift or the horizontal shift of the sine and cosine curve and how to graph them. Now, let's talk about sine muna. When talking about sine, it has a general formula of like this is equal to a sine of bx plus c plus d. And when talking about cosine naman, it also has a similar general formula. However, instead of sine, obviously magiging cosine. Cosine of bx plus c plus d. Now, what am I talking about? Let's look tiga natin to. Yan, tiga natin yan. Now we can see in this, nakikita natin now that in the general function, in a general format ng sine and cosine function, ang ating amplitude will be the a or the value to the left ng ating trigonometric ratio or trigonometric value to the left. Then the period will always be the 2 pi over b. Ito yung b natin. And the d is the midline or the vertical shift. D, ito yung ating vertical shift or ang midline. And c over b, ay bakit white? And our c over b will be the phase shift. This one, ito yon. Pag divide mo, pag-divide mo to each other, so that will be the phase shift of the function. Now, let us have an example. Given the function sine of x, let us find the amplitude, the period, the vertical and horizontal shift, and let us graph the function. Now, remember the general formula for the sine function. It is denoted as y is equal to a sine of bx plus c plus d. Now, let us find the amplitude. As I said kanina, the amplitude will always be to the left of the trigonometric function or the trigonometric value rather, which is in this case the sine. Now, can we see any value to the left of sine? Wala. So, if walang value to the left ng sine, automatically we will assume that it's 1. Unless may nakalagay na negative dyan, ang amplitude pa rin natin is 1 kasi ang kukunin natin sa amplitude is the positive value ng a. So, in this case, pag may negative, magiging negative 1 yan. Pero, since positive value or the absolute value, we will just write 1. Now, yan. Now, let us now find the period of the function sine of x. The period is denoted by 2 pi over b. Now, tiga natin. Ang b natin is nasa left ng variable. In this case, ang variable natin ay x. Now, since walang value to the left of x, automatically, it's 1. So, our b is equal to 1. So, we just substitute it 2 pi over 1. Now, simplify. 2 pi divided by 1 will be just 2 pi. So, that is our period for... That will be our period sa... Wait lang. That will be our period. Yeah, that will be our period. Now, next. Let us find the... vertical shift. The vertical shift. Now, the vertical shift is denoted as D. Now, ang ating vertical shift ay lagi matatagpuan sa labas ng parenthesis. Now, let us look outside the parenthesis. Can we see any value outside the parenthesis? Wala. So, automatically, pag walang value sa labas ng parenthesis, ang ating vertical shift will be always equal to 0. Now, the phase shift. Ang ating phase shift is denoted by C over B. And by earlier, is na-establish na natin na ang value ng b natin is 1. However, wala tayong c. Now, we can see here in the general formula ng sine na ang c will be always to the right of x separated by addition or subtraction. Can we, tignan natin yung to the right of sine. Can we see any value to the right of x? Wala. So, minsan, kaya yung nakaganyan. Although, baka maisip natin 1 pero hindi. Kasi ganyan yan. X plus 0 siya. Since wala naman na talagang value yung 0, tinatanggal na lang yan. So, ang matitira na lang is x. So, ang value ng ating c will be 0. Now, using this, using itong mga nakuha natin, we can now graph the function of sine of y is equal to sine x. Yan. Now, in drawing the graph of a sine function, we need to remember the concept of imimi, wherein the I stands for the interval and the big M stands for the maximum and the small m stands for the minimum. So, what are the maximum and minimum? So, basically, ito yung pinakamataas or ito yung pinakamababang point sa graph. So, in order for us to get the maximum and minimum, we need to look first at the vertical shift and the amplitude of the function. Tignan natin. Ang ating vertical shift ay 0. So, ibig sabihin, hindi aakyat or hindi bababa yung midline ng function. Ang vertical shift, halimbawa, ang vertical shift natin ay plus 1. Ibig sabihin yan, aakyat yung midline by 1 unit. So, dito na tayo mag-i-start sa 1 unit. However, ang ating vertical shift ay 0. So, we will stay here sa dito. Mag-i-stay tayo. Dito. Yan. Mag-i-stay tayo dyan. Now, anyways, moving on. Since ang vertical shift natin ay 0, let us now take a look at our amplitude. Ang amplitude natin is equal to 1 unit. Now, in order for us to get the maximum and minimum, we will go up and down from the midline by 1 unit. Now, drawing ko lang. 1, 2, negative 1, negative 2. Yan. Now, in order for us to get the maximum and minimum, we need to go up and down the amplitude units from the midline. Now, ang midline natin is located at 0. So, we need to go up 1 unit kasi 1 unit ang ating amplitude and go down 1 unit para makuha ang ating minimum. So, 1 unit up. 1 unit up. Ayan, pataas tayo. This will now be our maximum and 1 unit down will now be our minimum. Now, using this concept, we can now graph may nakalimutan pa pala ako. The period. Now, ano yung purpose ng period? Yung period will always be placed at the very last part of the graph. So, lagi nandito yan. Yung period natin. Since ang period natin is 2 pi, lagay natin. Ang period natin is 2 pi. Ang period natin is kumbaga yun yung turning point bago mag-repeat ulit yung values ng sine function. Kasi ang sine function ay isang smoothly repeating wave. Ang pangit ng representation ko. Ganyan siya. Basta ganyan. Yan. Parang ganyan siya. Yan. It's repeating. So, ang period is kumbaga yun yung turning point ng function for it to repeat. Now, let us now get the intervals for this function. Now, for us to get the intervals of the function, madali lang yung technique dyan. Una-una, para makuha natin yung intervals, is kunin muna natin yung gitna, pinakagitna, kumbaga yun nandito. Now, how do we get, paano natin makukuha yung gitna? We just need to divide the period by 2. So, this is just 2 pi divided by 2. So, ibig sabihin na nasa pinakagitna natin is pi. Now, for the next interval, paano natin makukuha yun nandito, yung gitna? Again, para makuha natin, we just add the 0. Di ba 0 to? 0, 0. Yan. So, 0 plus pi divided by 2. So, that is just pi over 2. So it's pi over 2. Now, how do we get naman dito? So all we need to do is to add these guys, pi and 2 pi, and divide them by 2. So 2 pi plus pi is 3 pi divided by 2 will be 3 pi over 2. Yan. 3 pi over 2. Now na meron na tayo natin intervals, we can now graph the function of sine x. Now, sabi, mauuna tayo sa interval. Ano yung pinakauna nating interval? Hindi itong pi over 2, kundi itong 0, 0. Yan, dito tayo lagi magsisimula sa 0, 0. Unless may phase shift, pero we will talk about that later. Now, sabi sa interval, we will start here. So, yan. Next is the maximum. We need to go to the maximum towards the next interval. So, from 0, we will need to go to the maximum to the next interval, which is here. Ito yung next interval natin. Yan. So, ayan yung next, nasa maximum na tayo. Next, sabi, IMI. We will now cross the next interval. Ang ating next interval is pi. Ayan. Now, minimum. We need to go to the minimum towards the next interval. So, pag ganyan. Andito yung minimum natin. Ayan yung minimum natin. Ayan. Then, lastly, we will need to cross the last interval. So, yan. Now, this will be the graph of the function sine of x. And let us have an example na meron naman tayong vertical shift and phase shift. Now, given this function, 2 sine of 2x plus 4 plus 1, let us find the amplitude, the period, the vertical shift, and the phase shift. Now, without looking at the general formula of the sine function, how can we identify again the amplitude? Yes, it's always to the right ng ating trigonometric value. In this case, it's sine. So, ang nasa left ng sine is 2. So, ang ating amplitude is 2. Now, period. The formula for period is 2 pi over b. Now, 2 pi over b, without looking again at the general formula, tandaan natin na ang b natin will always be to the left ng ating variable. In this case, ang variable natin ay x. So, ang ating b is equal to 2. So, let's just substitute 2 pi over b. It will now be 2 pi over 2. And our period now will be pi. Kasi makakancel lang naman yan dalawa. Yan. So, pi. Ito na yung ating period. Yan. Ayan ang ating magiging period. Next, ang ating vertical shift. Ang vertical shift natin will always be outside ng parenthesis. Lagi nyo tandaan na ang amplitude to the right, to the left ng trigonometric value. Ang period is equal to 2 pi over b. Ang vertical shift will be always to the will be outside the parenthesis. Now, anong value na nasa outside ng parenthesis? 1. Now, ang vertical shift natin ay 1. And lastly, ang phase shift is denoted by c over b. As established earlier, ang ating b is equal to 2. And now, ang c natin, ang c will always be to the right of x. So, ano ang nasa right ng x? It's positive 4. So, it's 4. 4 divided by 2 will be 2 units. So, ang ating phase shift will be equal to 2. Now, using these values or using this given, we can now graph ang laki niya masyado. We can now graph the function of 2 sine. Yan. 2 sine 2x plus 4 plus 1. Now, remember, when graphing a sine function, we need to use imimi. Dilaw na lang para na ano. Imimi. Now, interval, maximum, interval, minimum, interval. Now, let us find the maximum. Tama. Let us find the maximum and minimum of the graph. Now, let us look at our vertical shift. Ang vertical shift natin dito is 1. And sabi nga natin kanina, ang vertical shift will influence the midline. Now, since it's 1 unit, positive 1, we will need to go up 1 unit. So, lagay lang natin 1. Balik rin natin. 1, 2, 3. Parang liit ng 1. 1, 2, 3. Negative 1, negative 2, negative 3. Now, using this, and ang ating vertical shift is equal to 1, we will, positive 1, we will, alam na natin na ang ating midline will shift 1 unit above, pataas. So, ang ating midline, starting from 0, going up 1 unit. So, dito na ang ating magiging midline. Yan. Habaan lang natin. So, dito na ang magiging, ito na ang ating magiging bagong midline. Now, since ito na ang ating bagong midline, dito na tayo magsisimula sa pag-graph, hindi na rito sa 0. Now, amplitude. Ano ang ating amplitude? 2. Now, it means from the midline, we need to go up 2 units. 1, 2, to find the maximum. So, from here, 1 and 2. Dito ang ating maximum. And going down 2 units. 1, 0, and 1. Here. Here, and here. So, that will be now our minimum. Now, now, given na ang ating, given ang ating maximum and minimum, we now need to find the intervals of this function. Now, ang period natin is pi. So, lagin natin ilalagay ang period to the last here. Now, let us now find the intervals. Ano yung nasa gitna nito? So, that's just the period divided by 2. So, that's gonna be pi over 2. Then, next, ano nasa gitna nito and ito? So, you just need to divide this by 2. So, that's gonna be pi over 4. And lastly, ano ito? Sa kanan dito. So, just add them. It's gonna be pi over 2 plus pi is equal to, ano yung LCD niya? 2. Then, 2 divided by 2, 1 times pi is pi. May over 1 to So, the 2 divided by 1 will be 2 times pi will be 2 pi. Now, pi plus 2 pi will be 3 pi over 2. Now, divide it by 2 kasi kukunin natin yung nandito sa gitna. So, kunin mo yung reciprocal ng 2 will be 1/2. So, multiply it by 1/2. 3 pi times 1 will be 3 pi. 2 times 2 will be 4. Now, ito na yung ating intervals. Now, tignan natin. Meron tayong phase shift. So, by the definition of phase shift, kailangan natin, since may value tayo ng phase shift, kailangan natin gumalaw to the left or to the right. Since it's positive, kailangan natin i-move yung graph to the left. Kasi, when the phase shift is positive, we need to go to the left. But when it's negative, we need to go to the right. Now, instead of starting at the origin, we will now go back 2 units to the left. So, ito yung ating 1. Pangit naman yan. Ito na lang. 1, then 2. Alisin natin to. Nakakalito. Ayan. Now, we need to go back 2 units to the left. But before that, ayun, where was I? We need to go back 2 units. 2 units to the left. So, start tayo sa 2. Ayun. Since we need to go back 2 units to the left. We will now start at 2. Pero mas madali na lang kung hindi kakayanin, pwede nyo yung iset yung nasa loob ng parenthesis, equate nyo sa 0. So, it's gonna be 2x plus 4 is equal to 0. So, that's transpose 2x is equal to negative 4 over 2 over 2. Now, ang x natin is equal to negative 2. So, we will start at negative 2. And nandito yung negative 2. Pero, mas madali, no na kung bibilangin, diba? So, pwede natin i-divide na lang, no? 4 divided by 2 is 2. Since it's positive 2, we need to go 2 units to the left from origin. So, dito tayo magsisimula. Now, imimi. It says that we need to start at the very first interval. Since naka-phase shift tayo, magsisimula tayo sa 2. So, dito tayo magsisimula pag ganyan. Pangit. Yan. Yan. Now, next, maximum. We need to go at the maximum. So, yan. Pag ganyan, to the next interval. Next, the next interval will be here. Ayan. Ayan. Next, minimum. Ang ating minimum ay andito sa 1. So, we need to go here. Next, nandito pa minimum. I am, oh, so, interval na next. Yan. Interval. Now, we cross the interval. Now, next. Imimi. So, next gonna be the big M. Kasi I am. So, next is M. Malaki na yun. Malaking M. So, maximum here. Then, interval. Yan. Cross the interval. Then, minimum. So, it's gonna be here. Then, interval. It's gonna be here. Then, maximum. Yan. Then, lastly, now, yan. Now, this will be the graph of the function. However, kung isang cycle lang ang hanapin nyo, so it's gonna start dun sa very first imimi. So, ang very first natin na imimi is ito. Ayan, I am. So, this part na to, hanggang dito lang. Yan, ito. Will just be, ayan, kung para na, yan. Ito lang yung first cycle ng function. However, this is the full graph of the function with the repeating sine waves. So, ayan. Pero kung first cycle lang, ang kailangan, hanggang dito lang tayo. Uunahin na lang yung first imimi. Yan. Tapos na-continue na lang siya sa mimimi. Yan. Now, let us now go to the cosine function. No, kailangan ko pa mag-review. Now, since similar lang naman yung general formula ng cosine and sine, we can just use that to find the amplitude, the period, the vertical shift, horizontal shift, and we can now graph it naman din. Next. Now, let us find the amplitude. Ang amplitude ng sine or cosine will be the value to the left of the trigonometric value. In this case, it's cosine. Ang nasa left ng cosine is wala. So, automatically, we assume that it's 1. Now, the period is equal to 2 pi over b. And now, ang b natin will be always to the left ng x. Walang value sa left ng x. So, automatic, it's 1. So, 2 pi over 1 will be just 2 pi. Next, our vertical shift will always be found outside the parenthesis. Wala tayong value sa labas ng parenthesis. So, ibig sabihin ng ating vertical shift is 0. And lastly, ang ating phase shift will be to the right of the variable separated by either addition or subtraction. Since walang value to the right ng ating x, automatic ang ating phase shift ay 0. Now we graph, ay, mali. Now we graph the function. Madali lang to kasi wala tayong vertical shift. Now, ay wala tayong horizontal shift pala or phase shift. Now, in graphing cosine functions, instead of me, we need to remember me, meme. Yan. Wherein mauuna tayong mag-graph sa maximum, then we will end sa minimum. Now, let us find the maximum and the minimums. Since ang vertical shift natin ay 0, mag-start ulit tayo sa 0. Then ang amplitude natin is 1. We need to go up up and down 1 unit. Sulat ko lang. 1, di kita. Yan. 1 and 2. Negative 1, negative 2. Now, to find the maximum, we need to go up and down the amplitude units. So, here, ito ang ating magiging maximum. And here, pababa, will be now our minimum. Kasi 1 unit lang naman pataas at pababa. Yan. Mali. Yan. Now, next, we need to find the intervals. Ang ating period, ano ba magandang kulay? Ang ating period ay 2 pi. So, ibig sabihin, ang pinaka-last natin ay magiging 2 pi. Now, let us find the intervals. Here. Ano nasa gitna nito will be pi. Ano nasa gitna nito will be pi over 2. Ano nasa gitna nito, 2 pi plus pi divided by 2 will be 3 pi over 2. Now that we have the intervals and wala tayong phase shift, we can now graph the function of y is equal to cosine of x. Now, sabi, we will start at the maximum. Now, ano yung maximum natin? Ito, nandito yung maximum natin. So, we will start here. Instead na sa origin, we will now start here. So, sa highest point. Yan. Next, sabi raw, we need to cross the next interval. So, ang next interval natin is nito. Yan. Then, next, going down to the minimum, towards the next interval. Ayan, ito ang ating minimum. Ayan. Then, next, we need to cross the interval, next interval. Ayan. Then, lastly, the maximum. Ayan. So, that will be the graph of the cosine of the function y is equal to cosine of x. Now, let us find the amplitude, the period, the vertical horizontal shift, and the graph of the function y is equal to 2 cosine of 2 pi x plus 3. Now, let us find the amplitude first. Amplitude will always be to the left of the trigonometric value. In this case, it's cosine. So, ating amplitude is 2. Ang period is denoted as 2 pi over b. And ang ating b will always be to the left ng variable. So, ang ating b rito is 2 pi. Hindi lang pi. Kasi, dalawang pi yan. So, ibig sabihin, 2 pi ang ating b. So, it's gonna be 2 pi divided by pi. Ay, 2 pi divided by 2 pi. Sorry. Yung kapitbahay namin ng ingay. Ayan, anyways. Wait nga, napopause ko muna. Ayan. 2 pi divided by 2 pi. So, cancel. It will just be 1. Now, ang ating period will be equal to 1. Kapag nakakita kayo ng ganyan kapag halimbawa 2 pi x, then pinapahanap sa inyo yung period, don't just include pi as your b, but you need to include the constant as well. So it's 2 pi. And pag nakakita naman kayo, halimbawa 3 pi, tapos nakaganyan, halimbawa, ano ba maganda? Y is equal to 4 pi, tapos x plus 3, then pinapahanap sa inyo yung period. You don't just ay wait lang, may kulang eh. Y is equal to cosine, kunyari lang, cosine 4 pi x plus 3, then pinapahanap sa inyo yung period. And ang period natin is to the left ng the variable x. Kaso, baka i-assume nyo agad na 1 lang yun nandyan. Kasi walang variable sa left ng x. However, meron pa tayong cosine, meron pa tayong 4 pi sa labas. Then we need to, before we get the period, we need to simplify this muna. So, we just distribute. So, just cosine multiply 4 pi times x will be 4 pi x. Tapos 4 pi times 3 will be 12 pi. Now, pag pinala sa inyo yung period, laging i-include ang constant. So, basta yun. Yung constant, yung number. So, ang b natin, instead of pi lang, magiging 4 pi. And pag pinahanap sa inyo yung, let's say, phase shift, and c over b yun. So, it's gonna be, ito yung c natin, ito yung b. So, it's gonna be 12 pi over 4 pi. So, ang ating phase shift will be 12 divided by 4 will be 3. So, ito ang ating magiging phase shift. Anyways, ito. Since ang ating period is, ito yung b natin, 2 pi divided by 2 pi will be 1. So, ang vertical shift natin, nasa labas ng parenthesis, ang vertical shift natin is equal to 3. And lastly, ay ang ating phase shift, now it's denoted as c over b. Walang variable to the right ng x. So, we assume that is 0 over b. Ang b natin is 2 pi. So, 0 divided by 2 pi will just be 0. Now, using this, we can now graph the function of 2 cosine wait lang. Yan. Tabingin siya eh. Sorry. Basta medyo tabingin siya. I can see it. Ang pangit talaga. Hindi ako susuko. Wait lang, ipapause ko muna. Ayan, straight line na. Then, next. Ayan. Shit. Okay na yan. Ayan mo na. Hindi ako papayag. Yan. Straight. Uy, ba't hindi siya naging straight? Ayan. Straight na siya. Now, next. Using this given, we can now we can now graph the function of 2 cosine of 2 pi x plus 3. Now, remember, kapag cosine instead of imimim, we will be using mimim. Now, let us find the maximum. Ang vertical shift natin is 3. So, we need to go up 3 units. And that will be now our midline. 1, 2, 3. So, this will now be our new midline. This will now be our new midline. And now, sabi sa ating amplitude, we need to go up 2 units. 1 and 2. So, nandito yung ating maximum, which is 5. Then, we need to go down 2 units. 1 and 2. From the midline. So, this will now be our minimum. Parang, yan. Maximum. Then, minimum will be 1. Next, we can now graph. May period pa pala. So, ang period natin is 1. So, ang pinakadulo natin is 1. So, ano nasa gitna ng 0 and 1? 1/2. Now, nasa gitna ng 1/2 and 0, 1/4. Nasa gitna ng 1/2 saka 1. So, 1 plus 1/2. 2 plus 1 equal 3 over 2. So, ang ating ay 3 over 2. Yan. Wala na siya munang pi. Kasi ang period natin is 1. Now, next. Using now, meron na tayong intervals, we can now graph the function. Now, sabi mag-start tayo sa maximum, so we will start here. And then, going to the interval. Yan, pa ganyan. Then, next to the minimum. To the next interval. Then, maximum. Ay, maximum. Interval pa pala. Then, maximum. Maximum. Yan. So, now, ito na yung magiging function ng function. Ito na yung magiging graph ng function 2 cosine 2 pi x plus 3. So, yun lang. That's how you graph. And that's how you find the amplitude, the period, the vertical shift, phase shift. And that's how you graph the sine and cosine curves. Yun lang. Sana magamit nyo for the upcoming periodical test. And at this time of recording, it's 1:21. 1:21. It's January 21, 2024 at 6:08 p.m. And, ayun. Special request din tong video na to. So, bayaran nyo ako. Mga gunggong kayo. De, joke lang. Bye-bye!